Itzhak Perlman is here. He is a world-famous violinist and a conductor. He made his American debut on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1959 when he was only 13 years old. He has since become one of classical music stars. In addition to performing and conducting around the world, he also teaches at the Perlman Music Program on Long Island. The program was founded by his wife Toby in 1993. I am pleased to have Itzhak Perlman back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you.
What's been going on in your life?
Well,
teaching and music.
Well, it's my life has really changed. It's still in music, which is wonderful. It's I think the last time I saw you, maybe I did mostly performing.
Right.
But right now I do performing, conducting, and of course teaching. And not only am I teaching at the Perlman Music Program, but I'm also teaching at the Juilliard School. So so I'm really doing
teaching
it.
Violin or something else?
Violin.
Teaching
one-on-one.
violin.
Teaching violin.
Oh,
yes.
one-on-one.
Oh yes, I don't. Master classes I do very, very infrequently. I mean, I basically when I teach at Juilliard or at the Perlman Music Program, everybody sees me one-on-one.
And what are you looking for?
Well, you look for the spark, you look for the passion. I mean, how do you define talent?
Yeah.
It's a combination. And it's very, very interesting because when Toby and I, my wife Toby and I, listen to DVDs because we have people who want to come to the Perlman Music Program, so we get like sometimes 100, more than 100 DVDs, and it's interesting. You look at people playing and you have to figure out what is that they have to offer, and what is the spark, and you can not only see it by the way they sound, but also on the look in their eyes. How do they respond to a harmonic little nuance?
It resonates in their eyes.
Oh yes. So, and when it does that, you know what they're feeling. You just can tell. It's like, I would say to them, if you're not responding to this harmonic nuance, it's like walking in a museum and looking at a nice painting and then seeing the Mona Lisa and just going by. Instead of just saying,
wow,
that's a wonderful. That's the way you should do it about harmony. You listen to a harmonic chord, and it causes you to. For me, sometimes it causes me goosebumps to listen to something like that. And I say to the kids, if you really, really realize what you're hearing, the minute you feel it, I will hear it in your playing. You don't even have to do that much, but I will hear it in your playing because I know that you are aware that there is something there that's happening.
The truly gifted have what?
Well, they have a particular instinct and an ear. They respond a certain way. Obviously, we're talking about technique, I mean, that also comes. But the gift is how you respond to the music. For me, I mean, as I'm getting older, I really think that's really the most important thing.
You've seen greatness how often?
There's always potential for greatness, but what happens is potential does not always go the whole way.
What happens?
So many things can happen. Parents
get
record companies, managers, everything. It can happen in the positive,
but
and it can happen in the negative.
It has nothing to do with playing. Parents, record companies.
Everything has to do with playing, because what happens is that when you are in a certain atmosphere, you can work, you can get inspired, you can get involved. But if you think too much of other stuff, if you think about you've got to practice all the time so that you can become, quote, successful.
Yes.
It's not always the right way to go.
You practice because something in you demands to be good.
Yes, and also the practicing is another interesting thing, because practicing by itself, just to put in the hours, is not enough.
Yeah, but I don't think that people. This is really a question around the statement. People who have greatness in them. Practice has never been something that they did not like, because they were compelled to add to natural talent, experience, teaching, growth.
Well, I'm not sure that you are often compelled to practice.
Really?
I think you're compelled to make music.
Yeah, but okay, but I mean,
I
the
mean,
best.
I was not compelled to practice. I hated it.
Did you really?
Oh,
You hated the act of getting better?
no, I
But
hated
doesn't
the
practice
act
make
of
you
the
better?
practice. Yeah, but as a young kid, you don't think about that way. You think about, I'm practicing, I'm putting in hours and hours of work, and it's drudgery. A lot of the kids that I see believe more practicing is better.
Yeah.
But I
It's
always
not
say,
necessarily true?
no, it's not necessarily true. I mean, for example, if you're really talented,
Yeah.
my rule is more than 5 hours a day
Okay.
is not necessary. Practicing is the act of repetition.
Right.
So now, if you repeat something and you do it wrong,
Yeah, exactly.
then you've practiced
Exactly.
wrong. So you have to be very careful how you practice.
But that's
what
why we
are
have
your
teachers.
goals? Exactly. But when you're not with your teacher, then what do you do? If you're alone and you're 10 years old or 11 years old, it's a challenge.
Well, speaking of you,
Yes.
here is you playing live from Lincoln Center. This was January 5th, my birthday. Talk to me about conducting and what that means to you.
Well, first of all, it's a lot of fun for me right now because what it means, first of all, is to be exposed to different kind of music.
Right.
You know, as a string player, you know, you play certain things and you play them, and sometimes there's a lot of repetition. So when it comes to conducting, I get the chance to be introduced to repertoire that I love and that I haven't had a chance to really be involved in. So the conducting is a lot of fun. And what I like to conduct is I like to conduct, you know, the meat and potatoes of the repertoire, you know, Brahms and Tchaikovsky and Beethoven and Mozart and Haydn, and it's just, it's great stuff. A few things about conducting that I think maybe people think that conducting is all about power, and I would like to hereby say that it's not true. It's not about power. I think that the orchestra has the power, not the conductor. If the orchestra does not respect what the conductor does and what the conductor has to say, they will not give out.
Then what is it about?
Conducting is about I always find there's a real mystery in conducting because I keep repeating this, but I think it bears repeating. You can put 3 or 4 different people to give a downbeat to an orchestra, and they'll get different sounds. And it has to do with a current that comes between the conductor and the orchestra. Body movement, something in the face. And the players, you know, they really, really know. They know when they see how they're affected. And then what happens is that for me as an instrumentalist, it's a challenge to make the orchestra sound like I want to hear. Because everybody, you know, people talk about sound and they say, what makes every individual have a particular sound? And a lot of it has to do with what kind of hearing you have when it comes to sound. What do you want to hear when you play? Obviously, there is a technical component to it, but in the long run, it's how do you hear a violin sound? How do I hear a violin section or a cello section or a viola section or a wind section? What do I want to hear in my head? And then, of course, the great conductor can just go like that and get that sound, and sometimes just say a couple of words. So for me, that's a great challenge, to have the orchestra sound like I want them to sound.
People who write about you have described your performance as intuitive, you know, and emotional, and I mean, it has that element of personality.
Well,
I don't mean the way you perform, I mean the way you do the music.
Well, I like to talk to music.
Really?
I like to talk to music, and that's the way I teach. I said after a while, when you know how to play the instrument, then you should forget playing the instrument. It's now time to talk the music, to talk the phrases. Sometimes I tell my student to read a paragraph. And in the paragraph, there are certain words that they can say. And it's something like, sometimes there was one paragraph where they had the word extraordinary. So I'm not going to say to them, are you going to read extraordinary? Are you going to say extraordinary? Because extraordinary is an extraordinary word.
Yes.
So you're not just going to say extraordinary. You're going to have an inflection.
Yeah.
Same thing when you hear a phrase that you feel is really meaningful. My God, you cannot just play it. You have to speak it. You have to talk it.
Do you get as much out of teaching as you get out of playing?
Oh, yes.
Do you really?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just to see how kids develop is amazing. To have that breakthrough. Sometimes you teach for a year or two, and all of a sudden one lesson you come, and that's it. And you know, it sometimes brings tears to your eyes.
So you'll take a kid who's been struggling or who's been coming along, and then the next day, all of a sudden they show up one day, and something has happened.
Well, it's not a question of struggling, you know, because the
No, I
kids are
understand
basically, but you know, sometimes
I don't mean struggling, but they're
struggling to maybe express a
How long does
certain
this
way.
take? A year, 2 years, 6 months?
I don't know.
You don't know.
It's everybody. That's the greatness of what this whole teaching thing. Everybody has a different schedule. You know, you can have somebody at 12 or 13 or extremely talented, and then it's almost even more difficult to keep the talent going at a certain, at a certain pace, and make it progress. And sometimes you have a kid who sounds very good, but plays age appropriately. That means that, when they're 13, you close your eyes, you hear, and you say, well, this is a 13-year-old kid playing.
Right.
Which means that it comes with all the 13-year-old characteristics. And then they develop, in a sense, it's kind of maybe easier, because when things are age appropriate, it's more natural. But when somebody is so incredibly gifted at a very young age, it's more of a challenge.
You once said, you have to have something to say
Absolutely.
in order to play great music.
Yes, I say to the kids, I said, if it helps you, imagine that this phrase represents a character in a play. Yeah. And what is the character like? Is this character debonair? Is this character shy? Is it character introverted, extroverted, and so on? And the minute you think about that, all of a sudden, everything about the music changes. The notes take away the personality of the notes. They're no longer notes. They are vehicles to express something.
I once asked Beverly Sills, and were there moments in which she just exceeded her own expectations? And she said yes. And there were a couple.
Yeah.
But she wasn't sure why. It just came together.
Well,
and it was more beautiful, more powerful, more...
It's when everything falls into place
it's like
properly.
a perfect storm.
Yes. When it falls into place. So it's a question basically of a physical sensation.
Yeah.
And then something about the creative process that just say, I think I'm going to go to the left and going to make a slight right turn and go straight. But you see, of course, I believe that in music, as in everything else, there is an element of contagiousness, or if you want to, it's contagious. When something goes right,
so if you
it's contagious. That means if one phrase goes right, it's almost positive that the next one will be also right.
You get on a roll.
Yes. Yeah. And the other way around. If one phrase is not quite, it's difficult to get out of it. So it's absolutely incredible, and I find it when I play, and I find it when I teach, and I find it when I conduct.
When are you next performing?
I'm performing with the Philharmonic at the end of September. That's my next performance.
Hope to be there. Thank you.
Hope so. Thanks.